celebrating 48 years on the air. Award-winning Farmweek is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, we continue Season 2 of our series On the Farm, a father-son dairy-turned-beef cattle operation. In southern gardening, not every cloud has a silver lining, but some flowers do. In the markets, what is the state of agriculture in Mississippi? And back on our series, the conclusion of Part 4, their beef cattle business, came with a steep learning curve. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Great to have you with us again here on Farm Week, brought to you by Mississippi State University Extension. This week, we conclude Season 2 of On the Farm, our Emmy-winning series on stress in agriculture. In this final episode, we meet David and Will Gilmer of Sulligent, Alabama. Their daily dairy operation has been in the family almost too many years to count. But like many dairies across the South and across the country, for that matter, it all came crashing down.
Farm has been in the family several generations. I couldn't tell you how many years. We topped out milking on the milking herd around 230 cows. That was what we thought we could sustain, what with the cropland that we had, pasture land, cropland that was rented. Of course, you had the 230 milking cows, and then you probably backed up and you had another 130 young stock, coming on for replacements. So, that's, as far as numbers goes, that's about where we were when we maxed out. Five or 6 years ago, we did not like what the dairy business was becoming. Through no fault of our own, the dairy business just changed, and it was going to make it hard for a small operation to thrive. The profit and loss margin just kept getting smaller. Cost kept going up. What you got for the price of the milk did not go up in proportion.
There's a lot of challenges that dairy farmers in Mississippi and across the Southeast face. Most of them are economic challenges in terms of either facing lower revenue for the product, for the milk that they produce, but also the cost side is a huge story, especially right now. The cost of production is just really high. And so we've kind of seen some of these things pull together over the past few decades, and is leading to fewer dairies in our state and in our region.
If you were going to make anything, you made it off of volume, and we could not expand as far as being landlocked anymore. That's why we said, well, let's try our hand at beef cattle.
You want me to get in there?
We decided to start breeding our cows to beef bulls, Angus, and start raising a beef herd that way. You know, and there's been some growing pains with that. There's been a learning curve that we've had to kind of develop.
There's challenges in transitioning from dairy to beef because even though they're both cows, their nutritional needs are different. What you're trying to do with them is different. And so we have these years and years and years of managing cows in a certain way that now we're having to change how we did that. If we don't do it right, you know, we'll get in a world of hurt and it'll lead us into trouble.
There are a lot of challenges and stressful challenges from making the swap from dairy to beef cattle production. You know, a lot more focus goes into what type of calf will this cow produce? Is it going to gain enough weight? What are the nutritional requirements to ensure that that calf is able to grow and hit a target weight whenever you're going to sell it in the future? You're also looking for a really uniform calf crop, and so if you've got a group of cows, you're looking for them to calve at the same time and for their calves to all kind of look the same and be a similar weight.
The first bunch that calved in, we didn't supplement their feed or their, you know, what they were eating good enough. And these mamas being half Holsteins now, they were pouring the milk out and the calves were taking it and the calves they were booming and going, but the calves pulled too much body condition off of them. And so we were very slow getting them bred back. And ideally, I don't care if it's a dairy cow or a beef cow, you'd like for them to have a calf at least every 12 months. So our calving interval got to be about 18 months, and that's just not where we want it.
The conversion to beef cattle hasn't come without some serious setbacks along the way. There are obviously fundamental differences in the way the two operations work. We'll have that and more in the conclusion of this final episode a little later in the show.
On the lighter side, as we said at the top of the show, not all clouds have a silver lining, but some plants certainly do. Here's Eddie Smith, the man with a sterling reputation for helping Farm Week viewers create a polished landscape.
Today, Southern Gardening is in Long Beach, Mississippi, admiring some silver-colored plants. Let's take a look at some of these plants that shine in the landscape. Dusty Miller, a traditional landscape plant, is a hardy perennial admired for its striking silver-gray foliage. Its soft, finely lobed leaves, covered with a dense, silvery white, felt-like coating, gives the plant a velvety texture and a frosty appearance. Dusty Miller thrives in full sun to partial shade and prefers well-drained soil. Sea holly is a striking perennial plant prized for its unique and architectural appearance. It features stiff, serrated leaves that have a greenish hue. The most distinctive feature of sea holly is its flowers. The blooms are small, silver, blue, or purple, and clustered in tight, cone-shaped heads surrounded by a ruff of spiny bracts. These flower heads resemble thistles and appear on tall, branching stems. This plant thrives in full sun and prefers well-drained soil. Licorice plant icicles is another popular ornamental plant celebrated for its striking foliage. This plant is often used in gardens and containers to add texture and contrast due to its unique silvery white leaves. Its elongated, narrow, and pointed leaves are covered with fine, soft hairs that give them a silvery white appearance, resembling icicles. The foliage is soft to the touch and very aromatic when crushed. Icicles is hardy in USDA zones 9 to 11. In cooler climates, it is often grown as an annual or used in containers that can be brought indoors during winter. As you can see, plants with silver color can add beauty and charm to your landscape. I'm Eddie Smith, and I will see you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up, we conclude our Extra series on the farm. You met them before here on Farm Week. Longtime father and son dairy farmers David and Will Gilmer made the choice 6 years ago to get out of the dairy business. Costs were up, profit was down. They decided to try their hand at beef cattle. But as you'll see, the beef cattle business comes with its own challenges, including a steep learning curve. On the Farm concludes. That's coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
Here's this week's Farm Week calendar. First, coming up quickly, Tuesday, August 6th from 9 to 1 in Starkville, a row crop field day brought to you by Mississippi State Extension and MAPHIS. Look for plenty of educational programming, and there will be an air-conditioned lunch. There's no charge for this event, but registration, which closes on August 1st, is required. Just visit the Extension website online. Next, a big heads up for Coastal Biodiversity Day and BioBlitz on Saturday, September 21st in Biloxi. This will be a day full of environmental exploration led by experts on insects, plants, bats, and more. No charge for this event, and there's no sign-up required. Just show up ready to have fun. There will be snacks, water, and t-shirts. You can sign up for updates on the event, however. Just visit the Extension website online. For more info, email Mandy Rigsby at this address. And that's this week's Farm Week calendar.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. I believe that these are the keys to democracy, and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest, but also in the interest of society. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance towards the views of others. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Time for the market report. Prices still falling.
That they are. And how does Mississippi stack up so far this year? We'll get into both. But first, the numbers. What were last week's biggest gains and losses? And then an update on the Mississippi ag situation so far from MSU Extension and a Mississippi farmer. So, markets closed last week, still trending down. Livestock and lumber, the only exception. Let's take a look. Last week's biggest gain, lumber, up 16 bucks, a near 3.5% rise from the previous week. Last week's biggest loss, soybean oil, down over 1.5 cents, a near 4% decrease from the previous week. So with those lowering prices, how does that affect farmers here in Mississippi? We're kind of a microcosm of the ag situation nationwide, so we decided to take a closer look at the issue. And from appearances, seems farmers, especially in row crops, are frustrated with less income compounded by challenging weather and, at best, an average crop.
Well, I think as many people know, every year is a challenge with agriculture.
And that's true for Mississippi, especially this year. Although it may not appear that way when you drive along the highway, many crops in the state suffered from early rains causing late planting.
I think we had some challenges planting starting off. Had a lot of rain starting out early in the season. Parts of the state was very late getting planted. We had some preventative planting due to that. Seems like more lately here, now we're facing some drought problems in the state. We've got isolated showers, but it hasn't been widespread across the state. I know some of our county agents across the state have been taking pictures, trying to monitor and help with some of the potential drought issues that we're facing. I think some of the long-term forecasts that we're facing is actually probably predicting more drought.
It's been a roller coaster ride. So from March 1st through June 1st, we had 32 inches of rain, where we got 26 total last year. So we, behind on planting pitiful stands, waterlogged crops, lost a bunch of corn, replanted the beans. We hadn't had a decent rain since June 1st. So now we're burning up. We have no irrigation. So it's been a roller coaster.
It's the nature of agriculture when weather a big factor for success. And it's not just row crops. Cattle industry also still rebounding from several years of drought. With more of that on the way, things look disappointing.
Prices are out the roof because of the shortage, because we've had, 3 years of drought scattered around the country where we've faced huge sell-offs, and most of the cattle producers are older and are not replacing those cattle. We're way behind on hay production. We've made a lot of low-quality bales recently, but we couldn't get in the hay fields either with all that rain we had first part of the summer. We've had too much rain early. Of course, now that we finally got through with the first cutting, now we need some rain to make the second cutting. So it's just weather. I lost the majority of my corn to floods and had to replant the beans, so I only have a small acreage of corn, and a third of it is replanted. So I think it's going to be okay, but it's not going to be a bumper crop by any means. I don't know. Everybody's so down right now because of the markets and the preventive planting and the weak stands from all the rain early. There's not a whole lot of positives around the state right now about anything in agriculture other than the cattle business.
Another issue affecting Mississippi, commodity prices, as we've been reporting, on the lower side row crop-wise, which means less return this year for those hardworking men and women who grow our food.
Well, that's, always a challenge looking at commodity prices. Most every crop that we typically plant in this state, we're not experiencing extremely high prices. You couple that with equipment costs and some of the input costs that we're dealing with. Heard people even today just talk about their irrigation bills just from running diesel pumps and electricity costs and all that. So that's always a challenge, particularly when we have low commodity prices. But overall, I think the crops look pretty good, particularly where they're irrigated. As I've drove around the state in recent weeks, I think we got a pretty clean crop. But again, we got some areas, particularly where we don't have irrigation, that's struggling right now. And we got some time, but hopefully the weather will cooperate. We'll have a good fall and a good harvest, but it's a little early to tell right now.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Despite the cattle business doing pretty well, row crops the commodities to watch as growing season continues. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. Now for the conclusion of Part 4 of On the Farm. Seeing the writing on the wall, David and Will Gilmer made the decision long ago to convert from dairy to beef cattle. But with that conversion comes a learning curve.
There's so many production lags in beef cattle, and any amount of time that you fall behind really pushes back when you're going to earn revenue. And that's difficult from a lot of perspectives. In particular, it's difficult from a cash flow perspective. Managing cash flow is something that I would say is very different from dairy production to beef cattle production.
Even what it was, the milk check came every 2 weeks. Now the check from this beef operation only comes when we sell something, and we don't, we may go 2 or 3 months without selling anything. So yeah, you gotta learn to kind of budget things a little bit more.
Are you thinking about it a lot? Just, hey, we gotta be hitting different numbers.
I think about it every time my wife gets on me about spending some money. You know, bank account's getting low. You're gonna have to sell some cows. Okay, well, I think about it then for sure. Or when I get a fertilizer bill or something other like that, you know, think about it. Don't think about it too long, because it's I think it'd be bad for my mental health if I dwelt on it too much. And as far as paying off the note on on our loans, we've got enough animals we could cover the whole thing if we sold them all right now and have a little bit left over. But there we'll be sitting there with empty pastures, you know, and if you hadn't got something on being productive, nature will take over and just be a mess, so to speak. So the place will grow up and you won't be able to find it.
I think cattle producers, ag producers in general, think longer term than probably your normal person. I really do think that. I think they think in terms of generations about, I want to make sure that the family farm can survive into the next generation. And so I think they carry more stress because of that, because they're not just worried about, okay, what's the check gonna be this month? Or whenever I do sell the calves, what am I gonna get for my calves? There's these longer term stressors that really place a lot of pressure on producers to think about who's gonna take over the farm whenever I'm not farming.
I'm not gonna live forever, you know. I'm 68, I figure I got 5, 6, 7 more good years in me, but you know, just Father Time's gonna catch up at some point. And so, you know, as we're going right now, I don't really see one person handling what we're trying to do right now. I mean, yeah, you might be able to if you scale down. But if you scale down, I don't know if there's a living in it. So, you know, kind of worry about that.
As we're trying to, you know, navigate the waters of this whole new enterprise, you know, we are going to have to be really smart about how we do things. We have some flexibility that we didn't have with dairy and working with the beef cows, but it's not something we can be cavalier about. We have to make good business decisions about it, even as we're learning how best to manage those animals.
We just have to see how things progress. We're not making quite the same mistakes we did when we started out. We're still not real 100%. The next thing we really need to learn is a better marketing strategy. but you got to have numbers to do that, and we're trying to build our numbers. I've been conditioned, I guess, on account of the way this business is. You kind of live in the moment. You kind of plan ahead, but you live in the moment, and after that moment's over, you can't look back. You close that chapter and turn the page. See what's written on it.
At the end of 2023, there was one less dairy farm in the state of Alabama. Very important, if you or someone you know is in emotional crisis, call or text 988 anytime for confidential free crisis support. Well, next time on Farm Week, one more chance to meet the reigning tree farmers of the year. They're a husband and wife team, owners of 300 acres, a quarter century of grooming this forested land full of prized hardwoods and pines.
He's a numbers man, she's an artist, but together they've poured their hearts and souls into their beloved tree farm, helped by a team of solid forestry professionals.
Meet one more time Mississippi's Tree Farmers of the Year next time on Farm Week.
Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next week. Thanks for watching.